Stewart Cameron, you have made thousands of friends right now from Newfoundland and Nova Scotia, and I tell you where would be a good place to tell that tale.
Oh.
At the Newfoundland Club.
Oh, yes.
So,
well, as a matter of fact, I've told it at the Cape Breton Club.
Oh, have you?
Just recently, too.
Who wrote that poem?
This was written by Ted Russell, who is, and actually I heard it performed by his son, Kelly Russell, at an early Mariposa down in Toronto. And after hearing him, I just had to learn it. And indeed, even at that one hearing, I heard bits and pieces of it and could remember bits and pieces of it. And fortunately, for a recitation, I found the exact words and try to imitate his accent as he told it then.
That's what I was going to ask you about. You have a lilt in your speech. What's your background?
Well, I was born in Scotland, but I was brought up in Canada, surrounded by Scottish relatives. So many of the stories I tell have well, I tend to drift off into a Scottish dialect, because this is one of the stimulating things that got me involved with stories is the language element and the accent. I'd known fantastic storytellers who just coincidentally happened to come from the British Isles. They were either Irish or they were Scottish, and it was well, the stories were wonderful, but part of the magic of what these storytellers did was their use of their own particular idiom to tell these stories, their own language, their own dialect, their own accent.
Of course, and there are so many different cultural groups in Canada that we can draw on all of these, from the Ukraine and from Poland, from Czechoslovakia, Germany, Scotland, the British Isles, and so on, and all different parts of the Ottawa Valley. Bernie Bedore is a great storyteller. He lives in Iron, where would it be called? Iron Bridge, maybe?
Oh,
there's such a place around it. No, well, whatever. I was just going to mention to our viewers, if you're listening to Stewart tell a story and he's going to tell more, you'll see his telephone number on the bottom under his name. And that's a place, if you would like a storyteller to come and visit your, I was going to say wakes or weddings or fancy balls or wherever, schools, libraries, perhaps. Where else have you read? Where else would you like to read?
That about covers I will read, or I don't read. I tell stories. I could tell stories anywhere, at any time.
So you get your pencil, and just before when Stewart tries to tell his next tale, you could just jot down his phone number, and he's open for phone calls and offers, and your fee is negotiable, isn't it?
Oh yes, yes.
It depends on where you're going.
How much time and how much preparation is involved, but I'm anxious to tell stories at the drop of a hat.
You'd love to do that, so I think that I enjoyed that one very much, the recitation part. Do you do any Robert service?
Well, as a matter of fact, I do.
Because when you were going into that one, I sort of, even though it, I kind of got the rhythm of,
Robert service is ideal for recitations, and he really should be read more or told more. I mean, he writes in an idiom that suits a recitation. Of course, that's how he presented his poems back up in the Yukon. Before they were printed, they were obviously rehearsed and presented in front of his colleagues and community up there.
Tell us another tale, Stewart. Stewart Cameron telling stories.
I'd like to tell you a tale that I got from a fellow called Jim Strickland, who is an excellent storyteller and a good friend of mine from Toronto. Jim is Scottish, with a thick Scottish accent, and I learned this tale from him. And it's called The Humpyback Man.